Hello everyone. Before this video gets started, I just wanted to remind everyone that our free online tutoring for the upcoming semester is starting soon. So head over to studystem.org if you need help with chemistry, physics, or biology. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Question 4 of the AP Biology exam says that a bird, Geospiza conirostris, bred with a female Geospiza fortis, which is a species of finch, common on Daphne Major. Now, the breeding between these two finches led to the formation of a hybrid lineage which became known as the big bird. The graph shows the relation between the beaks of major competitor finch species on Daphne major and the big bird hybrid lineage. There are 4 birds in total: G. magnirostris, the big bird, G. fortis, and G. scandens. You can see x-axis is the beak length and the y-axis represents the beak depth of each bird. According to the graph, it is clearly shown that G. magnirostris have both bigger beak depth as well as longer beaks, whereas the G. fortis and G. scandens almost have similar beak depths and beak lengths, whereas the big bird, which is the hybrid lineage, is intermediate in beak length as well as beak depth between all 4 of these birds. Part A of question 4 says, the big bird lineage became reproductively isolated from G. fortis. Describe one prezygotic mechanism that likely contributed to the reproductive isolation of the big bird lineage from G. fortis. So, a prezygotic mechanism is a reproductive isolation mechanism, and this mechanism happens before the process of fertilization. And the reproductive isolation mechanism that happens after the process of fertilization is called post-zygotic mechanism. So one of the prezygotic mechanisms that contributed to the reproductive isolation of big bird lineage could be either the behavior, or maybe it could be the time of the mating process, or it could be the food source of the birds, or it could be maybe the location on the island that we are talking about. So it could be either one of these prezygotic mechanisms. Part B is, based on the data in figure 1, which is this figure, explain why the big bird population has been able to survive and reproduce on Daphne Major. So according to the graph we have, it shows that the big bird, which is represented by these squares, the big birds have a different beak depth as well as a different beak length compared to the other birds, which obviously means that since their beak length and beak depth is different, they must consume a different food source. And if they consume a different food source, that means they do not compete with other bird species like the G. magnirostris, the G. fortis, or the scandens. Part C says, a virus infects and kills all G. magnirostris on Daphne major, but does not affect the other finch species. Assuming food type and availability stay the same, predict the most likely change in the beak phenotype of the big bird population after 6 more generations. So, since the Magnarostris population no longer exists, that means the food that they used to eat is now available for the other birds to eat. But to eat this particular food, the other birds would need the same beak depth and beak length as the G. magnirostris. So, after 6 more generations, the big birds will definitely have a bigger beak depth and a longer beak. Part D says, provide reasoning to justify your prediction in Part C. Our prediction in Part C was that the big birds will develop a deeper beak as well as a longer beak. As for the justification, since the G. magnirostrus will no longer exist, that means that the food that they eat will no longer be eaten. So this food will be available for the other bird species to eat. So if the other bird species want to eat this food, they will have to develop a larger and deeper beak. So that's the basic justification for part C.